Magandang araw po sa inyo. Welcome po sa isa na namang episode ng online series ni Inang Pamantasan kung saan ang pagkatuto ay walang hangganan. Ito ang PNU Talks. Ako nga po pala si Ginoong Elmar P. Guiruela at ako ang inyong Learning from Home buddy sa episode na ito. Ngayong araw ay ibabahagi ko sa inyo ang ilan sa mga best practices in teaching multigrade classes. Ako po ay isang guro sa DepEd Quezon, isang gurong namamahala sa paaralang elementarya ng Alat-Alatin, at ang District Multigrade Coordinator ng Lopez West District. So for today's episode, our objectives are as follows. So we will discuss about the overview about the multigrade program in Philippine education. We will get ourselves familiarized with the strategies and best practices in multigrade classroom. And we will define classroom management in a multigrade context. So let us now begin our episode discussing about the multigrade program in Philippine education. So ano nga ba ang multigrade education? Para saan nga ba ito? Ano ang mga basehan nito? At paano ginagawa ng Department of Education? Simulan na natin. So the state has consistently addressed the provision of access to quality basic education for all Filipinos since the establishment of the public school system more than a century ago. So this is consistent with its vision of fostering inclusive and participatory development, with education playing a key role in nation building. The MPPE or the multigrade program in Philippines is one of the flagship programs of the department to ensure continuous provision of quality elementary education services to far-flung, isolated, and poor communities in the archipelago. So now let us ponder upon this picture. So what can we say about this? What can we infer from this picture? So this picture is a classroom setup of a multigrade class. So let us now define, or let us have an overview of what is a multigrade school and a multigrade class. So a multigrade school refers to a kind of school which has a class or classes that combine pupils of different grade levels in one classroom. While a multigrade class is defined as a class of 2 or more grades under the responsibility of one teacher in a complete or incomplete elementary school. So the term multigrade is used to include a combination class composed of 2 grades or multigrade class composed of 3 or more grades. So this is as per revised omnibus policy of the multigrade. So meaning to say, we can consider that a school is a multigrade school if there are teachers handling 2 or more classes in a single classroom. So let us go now with the multigrade class combination or structure. So commonly, these are the combination or structure in a multigrade school. So we have grades 1 and 2 under one teacher, under the supervision of a single teacher or one teacher, grades 3 and 4, grades 5 and 6. And the other multigrade combination is grades 1 to 3, being handled by a single teacher, and grades 4, 5, 6 being handled by a single teacher. So, ito po ang usual na class combination or structure in a multigrade class. Pero minsan, we have the kindergarten class. At sa multigrade school, sometimes it is being combined on a grades 1 and 2. So, there would be a setup of kindergarten, grades 1 and 2, being handled by a single teacher, or kindergarten, grades 1, 2, and 3. So yun po ang usual class combination or structure in a multigrade class. So now let us have the multigrade classroom. What are the best practices on a multigrade classroom? So we have here the multigrade classroom management. So what is a multigrade classroom management? So under the best practices that we have in multigrade, one of the practices that should be on the list is the multigrade classroom management. So under this, yan, nakikita po natin on the picture, the different activities in a single classroom with a different grade levels. Iba-iba po ang kanilang ginagawa during the classroom instruction, depending upon on the activities initiated by the teacher. So we have here under the classroom management, of course, we have the multigrade class ideal physical arrangement, which is very vital in managing classes and learners with different levels. So these things should be done in order to achieve desirable outcomes in a multigrade class. So we have the first one, we have ideally with movable division between the grade level. So meaning to say, ay meron pong division na movable. Pwedeng alisin, pwedeng ilagay between the grade levels. For example, if we are catering grades 3 and 4, we can put a movable division between the two if needed during the classroom interaction or instruction. The second one must have separate blackboard for each grade level. So sabi ko nga po, multigrade school is catering two or more grade levels. So dapat po in a multigrade school, they also have the separate blackboard. The third one is with designated area for learning activities. Yan, kailangan po talaga yan. Kailangan po merong learning area para sa mga activities ng mga bata. And of course, my area for my score and my mistakes chart. So I will discuss that later, what is my score and my mistakes chart. So another thing is desks organized into small groupings. So in multigrade classes, so groupings is very vital in the classroom instruction. And the next one is a space in the center of the room, pwede po sa gitna, or perhaps some marked spaces around the room where groups can sit on the floor and work. So kailangan po may space talaga na i-allot si teacher para doon sagawa ng groupings or activities ang mga bata. Yan. Another thing in an ideal physical arrangement of a multigrade class, they should also have the workstations or learning centers where individuals and groups may go to complete their activities. Of course, needed as well ang learning materials, furnitures, and equipments para may magamit ang mga multigrade students. Resources kept on shelves around the room. Siyempre po, yung resources na kailangan ng mga bata. Boxes are labeled to help the students identify what they need. Yan. Ito pong tinutukoy kong box dito are the learning activities. Dapat po labeled properly, learning activity A or learning activity 1 and so on. So boxes or folders for students to work or for students' work to be kept in. So dapat po organize ang mga work ng mga bata in a multigrade class kasi po meron ngang iba't ibang grade level. So iba-iba dapat naka-organize ang gamit ng mga bata para hindi halo-halo, para mas madaling i-manage ni teacher. And the next one is the plenty of examples of individual and group work on display. Dapat naka-display ang mga work ng mga bata in order for them to be more motivated to do more. Ano po? Ayan. Under the multigrade classroom best practices is the organized learning activity sheets. Ano po? So this is to ensure as well that both grade level are working with their activities while the teacher is on the other grade level. So this was commonly facilitated by the little teacher or student or a grade leader. So as you can see, yan po sa picture, I have here I have there the boxes for grades 3 and 4 na labeled ang activity A, B, C, and D. So yan po ay ginagamit in a multi-grade classroom. So in order for the other grade level na maiwan silang may ginagawa para po hindi sila maiwan na walang ginagawa or kung ano-ano lang ang ginagawa. So while the teacher is on the other grade level is busy working with their learning activities na inihanda ni teacher, and that is facilitated by the grade level leader or the student leader. So si student ang nagpa-facilitate na pag-distribute sa mga kaklase niya. And then when his or her classmates are done with the activity, siya din po ang nagbibigay ng kita correction, and then self-checking and self-scoring ang ginagawa. And then afterwards, I proceed sila sa next activities. Ano po? So another best practices in a multigrade is the my score and my mistakes chart. So this has been a practice of a multigrade teacher to secure the flow of activities of each grade level. So that is to ensure a smooth flow of lesson as well as to avoid distraction. So in each activity, the kita correction is provided. Sabi ko nga po ay nakasama na sa learning activities ang kita correction as for self-checking and self-scoring, followed by accomplishing the my score and my mistakes chart. So in DepEd Quezon, ito po ay aming ginagawa in a multi-grade classroom nung may face-to-face pa, and hopefully we can go back to a normal classroom setup na may mga bata. Ano po? So paano ginagawa ang my score and my mistakes chart? So ganito lang po yan. In every activity, after the end of activity, after the self-checking and self-scoring, each learner will fall in line on the my score, and meron po dyan na label na kanilang, may legend na kanilang titingnan lamang. Then sa tapat po ng pangalan nila under activity A, B, C, and D or so on, ay doon po nila ilalagay yung kanilang scores. And then yung my mistakes chart is wala pong pangalan. Item number only ang nakalagay, and then ilalagay lang po nila, ma-mark lang po nila kung saan sila, kung anong item sila nagkamali. And what's the purpose? That is, of course, for the teacher to easily catch up with the activities. Ano po ang item ang kailangan ng tulong ng mga bata, saan sila nagkamali. So dun pabawi si teacher para mag-corrective instruction. Ano po? So that is the purpose of my score and my mistakes chart, to easily diagnose the level of the learners according to their activities. Next one is the teacher shifting. So sabi ko nga po, kapag sa multi-grade class ay iba-iba ang grade levels na handle ni teacher, so syempre po may shifting na ginagawa sa multi-grade. Hindi po basta lang lilipas si teacher from one grade level to another. So meron po yung shifting process. So letter icons are included in the plan to prompt the teacher when to move from one grade level to another. So icons are placed to signal the flow of movement from the start of the lesson to the end. So the icons are interpreted as follows. Yan. So ito po yung icons na ginagamit sa lesson planning ng mga multigrade teachers. So letter T, icon T stands for direct teaching. So direct teaching is the teacher is directly teaching or assessing the grade or the group. So meaning to say, the teacher is directly involved. Kasama ng mga bata si teacher. Nagtuturo si teacher, nag-a-assess si teacher, nagmamanage si teacher. And then the next icon is icon G, stands for group activity. Yan. The group or grade is having group work with less monitoring and supervision of the teacher. So on this icon naman po, on this part, the learners are doing their group activity with less monitoring and supervision of the teacher. Meaning to say, hindi 100% nakatutok si teacher. Once in a while, the teacher will monitor and will supervise the group activity of the learners. Another icon in the lesson plan of multigrade class is letter I, stands for individual activity. The pupils are doing individual activity all at the same time with the guidance and monitoring of the teacher. So dito po kasama ng mga bata si teacher, of course monitoring and serve as a guide while the learners are accomplishing their individual activity. And lastly, the last icon is icon A, stands for assessment. The pupil, the group, the teacher is doing an assessment activity. So kasama ng mga learners si teacher while doing the assessment. The teacher is either guiding or supervising, monitoring the learners. So these are the icons na tinitingnan ni teacher, ginagamit ni teacher in lesson planning to easily shift from one grade level to another. So this is T, stands for direct teaching, meaning andyan sa teacher. G stands for group activity. The learners are doing their group activity. And I stands for individual activity. Yan. Kasama ang si teacher, of course, and then assessment. So yan po ang ginagamit na letter icons in the lesson plan of a multigrade class para po mas easily directed si teacher when to move from one grade level to another, the shifting process, TGIA. Ayan. In lesson planning naman po, before the teacher actually writes the lesson plan, based on the pre-assessment results, it is good to determine first which teaching scheme or way of teaching to use. So the objectives, skills developed in the grade level combination will tell the most appropriate scheme to use. So the teaching schemes will likewise suggest the format of the lesson plan, kung anong format ng lesson plan ang gagamitin ni teacher. So there are 5 schemes, as you can see on the screen, in handling multigrade classes, and these are as follows. So in lesson planning, we have scheme A, scheme B, scheme C, scheme D, and scheme E. So let us study one by one. So scheme A, yan. So ano po ang scheme A ng lesson plan? What is the scheme A of lesson plan in a multigrade classroom? So the learning objectives of all groups are common in terms of behavior and content. So meaning to say, ang learning objectives ng grade levels, for example, is 3 grade levels, are common in terms of behavior and content. So the teacher can use scheme A lesson plan, wherein pare-pareho ang objective and common in terms of behavior and content ng lahat ng lesson ng 3 grade levels. So the teacher will use scheme A para mas madali. Ano po, pare-pareho lang ng objectives, but of course on the activities, iba-iba ng level. So the teacher will take the class as one class, but different levels in activities. So that is scheme A. Scheme B. Yan. B type of lesson plan is scheme B. When 2 adjacent grades have the same instructional objectives, while the other grade has a different objective. Ito naman po, for example, in handling 3 grade levels, dalawa sa 3 klase niya, 3 grade level handle niya ay magkapareho ng instructional objective at yung isa ang naiiba. So this is the time for the teacher to use the scheme B lesson plan, meaning to say those 2 grade levels na magkapareho ang instructional objectives, the teacher can take those 2 grade levels as a single class or as a single group. And then magbabari lang po, of course, sa level of activities na ibibigay. And then, of course, yung ibang objective is magkaiba. Iba ang way ni teacher. So, in these 3 grade levels, dalawa ang magiging instruction ni teacher. One for the iba ang objectives, and another one for the 2 grade levels na magkapareho lang ng objectives, but of course, will differ on the level of difficulty in the activities na ipoprovide ni teacher. Next scheme is scheme C. So what is the lesson plan is scheme C? So the scheme C is 3 levels or groups have the same behavior but have different content or they differ in difficulty. Pare-pareho po ng behavior pero magkakaiba lamang sa level of difficulty. For example is in mathematics, 4, 5, 6, quarter 4, week 9, domain is probability and statistics. On grade 4, we have solve routine and non-routine problems involving a simple experiment. Simple experiment lang. Pagdating sa grade 5 is involving experimental probability. And on grade 6 is involving experimental and theoretical probability. So this is the time for the teacher to use the lesson plan with Scheme C lesson plan. Magkakapareho ng behavior but different level of difficulty ang gagamitin ni teacher. So ganun din sa activities. Next po is Scheme D. So Scheme D, there are 3 developmental lessons because the instructional objective of the 3 groups have no commonality. Ito na yung magkakaiba po talaga lahat. Grades 4, 5, and 6, magkakaiba talaga ng objectives. So the teacher will take the class into 3 groups, into 3 class. Iba si grade 4, iba si grade 5, and iba si grade 6. Of course, following the proper shifting na gagamitin ni teacher. Kailan siya lilipat sa grade 5 from grade 4 and kailan siya lilipat sa grade 6 from grade 5. So, ganun po yun. So, next, last scheme is Scheme E. So, Scheme E is the objective or skill in the first grade is prerequisite, kinakailangan to the next grade level. And the skill in the second grade is prerequisite to the skill in the third grade. Ayan. Kagaya po dito sa example, ng objective is from grade 1, yung skill sa grade 1 is kinakailangan ni grade 2 to proceed with their activities or with to achieve their learning objectives, and ganun din naman si grade 3. Each skill is prerequisite to the next grade level. So kung ganun po ang makikita nating objectives, the teacher will utilize the Scheme E. In a multigrade, in the multigrade program, in multigrade education, ay hindi naman na po nahihirapan si teacher in finding the appropriate objectives for that week kasi we have now the budget of work na ni-crop ng multigrade program, Philippine Multigrade Program, para mas mapadali ang paggamit ni teacher ng BAW. Ano po, hindi na maliligaw si teacher kasi dun sa BAW, naka-ugnay na kung ano po yung mga lesson objectives for that grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3 for that week, and so on. So yan po ang schemes, different schemes ng lesson planning ng multigrade, scheme A, B, C, D, and E. Now, so let us have now the multigrade grouping approaches. So ito po yung isa naman talaga sa kailangan ng multigrade class, catering grade levels. Ano po, iba-ibang grade levels. So creating cooperative and flexible groups is an effective way in allowing student-centered learning. So through small groups, learners become an active constructors of knowledge by creating conditions under which they agree to take charge of their own learning. Ayan, so as we can see on the screen, students may work in the following groupings. Pwede po nating i-groupings ang multigrade class into these groupings. So the first one is the mixed ability groups. So with other students of different ability levels, mixed ability groups. So the mixed ability groups will need many opportunities for working with the same students for a few weeks so that they can develop the skills of working together and establish good work routine. So alam na alam po yan ni teacher when to group the class, mixed ability, magkakaiba ang kakayanan ng mga bata in order for them to learn from each other. So yan po yung ginagamit ng multigrade. The second one is the similar ability groups. Similar ability groups, unlike the first one. So it is the same ability levels who are at a similar stage of development. For example, in English, Filipino, and mathematics, similar ability, magkakapareho lang kakayahan. Igugrupo natin ang magagaling sa math, sa English, sa Filipino. So similar ability groups, in here, instruction can be efficient and effective for pupils with similar ability levels. They could have color names to identify themselves: red, blue, green, yellow, and so on. So the same ability groups will need to be flexible and change members when needed as the students learn and develop at different rates. So pwede po agad gawa ni teacher ng paraan na mabago agad ang groupings kapag kinakailangan when the needs arises. The next one is temporary groups. So with others who have a temporary specific common learning need, and the teacher has formed this group for a specific purpose for one teacher. So binuo lang ni teacher itong grupo because this group of learners needs to learn this specific activity or the specific concept. Kaya mahina or kailangan pang matutunan ang addition. So bubuuin ni teacher lahat yung into groups, yung mga hindi pa masyadong nakakatuto ng addition, and then doon niya bibigyan ng intervention. So next one is gender groups. Yan. So for short times to learn the specific skills needed, pwede rin ni teacher gamitin ang gender groups wherein magkakagrupo ang mga lalaki, magkakagrupo ang mga babae. Pwede rin naman po ang friendship group. So this can be motivating if the students can concentrate well with their friends. Sometimes the students may be encouraged to choose their group members. For example, the team on team activities and arts. So pwede rin po ang friendship groups lahat na magkakabarkada because they will learn more, they will be motivated to do more kapag sila ay nasa kanilang close friends. But of course, this is i-consider pa rin yung teacher yung mga bata talaga na kailangan, syempre, lahat magkakagrupo, lahat nasa grupo. And what will a teacher do dun sa mga bata naman na wala masyadong friends? So, of course, the teacher can do some arrangement with that. Ayan. So, those are the grouping approaches na ginagamit sa multigrade classes. And of course, it has benefits para sa teachers and sa students, most especially sa students. The first one is they learn to talk with each other and stimulate their thinking and learning. Kapag sila ay nasa grupo, they are stimulating their thinking and learning with one another. The next one, they generate more ideas. They tend to generate more ideas kapag sila ay nasa grupo nila, kapag sila ay in a group activity. The third one, they learn from each other and teach each other. Natututo sila from one another at tinuturuan nila ang isa't isa. They explain the question and remind others in their language in a way in which they are most comfortable. So maganda talaga kapag cooperative learning. And of course, lastly, they share experiences. That's the best thing about grouping approaches ng multigrade or even in a monograde classes. Cooperative learning is really one of the effective way of teaching or inculcating learning to the learners. They generate more ideas, they talk with one another, and of course, they make friends. Now, let us proceed with the classroom management for a multigrade setting. So after discussing the best practices of a multigrade class, let us now define the classroom management for multigrade. So in general, a classroom management for multigrade setting, a teacher, of course, needs to be an effective teacher. Imagine handling grades 1 and 2 in a single class, or grades 1, 2, 3 in a single class is really challenging. So a multigrade teacher should be an effective teacher. So how can a multigrade teacher be an effective teacher? He or she, of course, should have the ability to manage resources, facilitate learning in the classroom. So dapat daw si teacher has the ability to manage the resources that he or she has in the classroom to facilitate the learnings. So iba-iba nga po ang grade levels, iba-iba ang age, iba-iba ang abilities, iba-iba ang interest. So that's quite challenging para sa isang multigrade teacher at mahirap po talaga. So, kailangan ni teacher ma-manage ng maayos ang resources niya sa kanyang classroom in order to facilitate his classroom effectively and efficiently. And of course, teacher, ito po yung tinutukoy kong resources na dapat ng teacher i-manage. We have the 3M of resources. We have the moment, materials, and man. So in the context of teaching and learning, moment is referring to time. The teacher needs to manage his time. Ano po, ito yung sinasabi ko na for a subject, for example, of course, my time frame on subject. So the teacher should learn to manage the moment or the time in his class. Shifting from one grade level to another is one of the strategies ni teacher para manage niya yung time during that period. And the next one is materials. So in the context of teaching and learning, materials referring to teaching materials. So multi-grade class, iba-ibang grade level, so iba-iba ang objectives or iba-iba ang lesson. The teacher should learn how to manage the teaching materials very well. Kasi po, mas maraming grade level, iba-ibang objectives, doble-doble ang preparation na gagawin ni teacher. So the teacher should know to manage the teaching materials available in his or her classroom. The next one, and very important, is man. In the context of teaching and learning, man is referring to learners. So the multi-grade teacher should know how to manage well the learners. And one of the best way to manage the learners is of course establishing a good and efficient and effective classroom management. Sabi ko nga po kanina, a multi-grade class, iba-iba ang age, iba-ibang grade level, iba-ibang interest ng mga bata. So the teacher should learn well how to manage the learners. And when the multi-grade teacher manages these three, malaki talaga yung tsansa ni teacher para maging effective teacher in a multi-grade class. So in general, multi-grade teachers need to maintain a well-managed classroom to ensure a productive learning environment. In a well-managed classroom, learners understand their responsibilities, how to do the activities in groups, and work on their own. Mas less ang gawain ni teacher. Kapag na-manage ni teacher ang classroom, alam ng mga bata ang gagawin, ay hindi na masyadong destructive on the part of the teacher. Now, when he is teaching the other grade level, the other grade level is once in a while ay tanong, teacher, ano pong gagawin? Sir, ano pong next? So when a teacher manage well the classroom, establish teacher ng maayos na classroom management, mas smooth ang flow ng lesson. While the teacher is teaching on the grade 3, the grade 4 is working on their activities without much distraction. Next. So allow me to lead with you this quotation. The quality of multigrade teaching does not exceed the quality of multigrade teachers. Totoo naman po yan. So nasa kamay talaga ng multigrade teachers ang quality ng multigrade teaching. So let us all reach the unreached. In a multigrade education, ito po ang aming battle cry. We are reaching the unreached. Kasi po most of the time, or siguro naman you will agree with me that multigrade schools can be found in a far-flung and remote areas in every location or in every districts. Talagang nasa malalayo po yan. And then most commonly, ang mga bata ay nangangailangan talaga ng paggabay ng isang maayos na multigrade teacher. And those best practices will help the teacher to manage well his or her class. Now, for my references, I have used the Multigrade Omnibus Policy, the Multigrade Lack Resource Materials for Multigrade Teachers, the Multigrade Managing the Multigrade Classroom by Lynn Hill, and of course, the Glossary of Reform Education. So, thank you once and all. I-comment ang inyong mga katanungan, mga puro-puro tungkol sa ating episode ngayong araw. Huwag kalimutang i-share, i-like ang episode natin. Muli, ako si Ginoong Elmar P. Guiruela at sumainyo ang PNU Talks. Maraming salamat!